Hey, how's it going, YouTube? My name is Will, and I wanted to talk about the Alesis sr-18. This is a really cool drum machine. I've had it for a couple of years. I wanted to talk about some of the pros and cons to it in case you were interested in buying one. Who do I recommend this for and who I don't recommend this for. Just so you know, I am selling mine because I feel like I've kind of reached this ceiling as to what I personally wanted to do with it. And I'll talk about why I bought this and all that stuff in a minute, but just a quick overview. The sr-18 is a really cool drum machine that has maybe a couple hundred drum samples built into there. You don't have the ability to load your own samples into there, which is not why I bought this, so that's fine. But the reason why I bought this is because I wanted a drum machine that didn't have a focus on programming drums. I wanted a drum machine that had just a huge library of patterns that I could just synchronize to my other, let's say, sequencers and loopers. And this does an excellent job at that. This has, I don't quite remember the number of presets it has on off the top of my head, but you have a very large selection of all types of genres and stuff like that. So this excels really, really well at that personally. And more about the pros to this, I really like the drum samples that it has built into it. The drum samples are they're just all really interesting. You get weird, crazy like beatboxing stuff, but you also have more traditional kits. And I love that the drum kits are pretty much fully customizable. You can mix and match whatever drum samples you want. You're not adherent to any specific slot on the drum kit. Every drum kit has, I'd say, 24 drum samples you can put on everything. It's really interesting. There's a lot of control that you have on the drum kits themselves. So if you're willing to, do some menu diving, you can tell the snare, for example, to be panned on a certain side, like left or right. You can tell any sample to have a specific level of reverb send, a certain pitch that maybe you wanted to adjust higher or lower. Maybe you wanted to have a little bit of like low pass filter on a drum sample. All that stuff is very, very well thought out in this thing. It's very simple, and you can really craft the space of your drums pretty easily. So why am I selling this? Well, I've come to a point where I actually wanted to start programming my drums during jams, which is, I'm like coming full circle. It's like, bought this because I wanted a bunch of presets and to not have to do that. Now I'm in the opposite. Now I just want to program everything. Now this does have the ability to program your own drum patterns into it, but it's not fun to do. I'm going to be honest, it's just not fun to do. There's a couple of problems that I have with it personally. When it comes to programming drums, I like to do it in the moment, just immediately, as I'm already like flowing with, I got my loop going, all that stuff's going. I want to be able to just to jump in and to be like, okay, let me add this like kick pattern and snare, like this whole idea. It is not good at that. This thing is good at programming drums in advance and kind of just bringing it to your setup or to a gig or something like that. It's great at that. And I really love that you can record unquantized and get like this really specific off timing that you want. But in the moment, it's not good at it. There's a couple of issues, such as this has 12 drum pads on it. And these pads are velocity sensitive, but they're very stiff. So if you were planning on playing like finger drumming with it, you're not gonna finger drum with it. I'm gonna just let you know that you're not gonna finger drum with it. Maybe try it in the store. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's a skill issue. But I just find it to just not be responsive, and I feel like the velocity range is not that responsive. You can set every pad to just be at a fixed velocity if you want, but I feel like that kills the life out of the drum pattern. You can, of course, MIDI into it and use an external controller like a keyboard or drum pad or whatever you want to trigger off every individual drum sample with it. And I find that to work really well, and that's basically how I've always used it. Anytime I wanted to do any custom thing, I would just plug this into my, well, this doesn't have USB MIDI, but it has like the traditional 5-pin DIN, and I have an interface that, you know, can send out MIDI. So I would basically go from my DAW, I use Fruity Loops, I'd go from my DAW through the interface into this thing and would just send it whatever pattern I want, and I would just jam that way. But if you're, again, if you're buying this for specifically creating your own patterns, the experience is not that fun, and I would just go with something else. But I would just buy this specifically if you just wanted a bunch of patterns and you just didn't want to have to deal with all that stuff, which again, there's other drum machines that are programmable that already have a bunch of patterns, and or you could just build up your own library. I'll just say this in closing, that I'm glad that I bought this, and it was basically like a bridging, it kind of filled a gap in my setup for a little bit, and I upgraded to it's over here on this side, you can't see it, but I upgraded to the Roland sr-18. It is a very expensive drum machine, but it solves all the problems I had with this. Basically, you could just program exactly what you want and change stuff instantly, and you could just save 128 patterns in there anyways, so it's just an obvious no-brainer. But this, for its price, you could probably find this used. I personally wouldn't pay more than $250 for this thing, so that's probably like on the high end for it, but you could easily find this used on Reverb and all that usual stuff. But these are just my personal thoughts. I just figured I'd let you know about this. Last thing I'll say is that this also has bass into every pattern has like a bass progression like built into it. I turn it off immediately, so I don't know anything about it. I never use it. I'm like, let me instantly mute that every time I turn this thing on. So I just think it's so unnecessary. But that's pretty much my thoughts on the Alesis sr-18. Feel free to talk to me in the comments about it, and yeah, have a good day.